I have wanted to make this video for way too long, and I finally have the time and energy to get it done. So let's get into it. So a bit over a year ago, I was living a pretty normal life for an 18-year-old. I just graduated high school. I had a scholarship to run cross country and track in college, so I was stoked for that. I had all these plans I was looking at for my future, and I was like, all right, this is how things are gonna go. This is what I gotta prepare for. I kind of figured it was all set in stone, more or less. But you'll find out very shortly that it was not set in stone. All right, so in order to compete in college, the NCAA requires all their athletes to go get a physical prior to the season. So that June, I went, I got my physical, I got my blood work, all that good stuff. Fast forward a week or two, and I get a call from my doctor, and she's like, hey, your blood results came back kind of weird, and your white blood cell count is higher than it should be, blah, blah, blah. I didn't really know what any of that meant, but she wanted me to go to some follow-up appointments and have more blood taken to make sure there wasn't any serious issues. Now, I wasn't really concerned because I felt fine. I was going on 10-mile runs. I was working out at the gym every day. I was eating pretty healthy. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't smoking. I had absolutely no symptoms that would hint at anything being wrong with me. Overall, I would have considered myself to be in perfect health, which is why it's so crazy that if I hadn't gotten that physical, then I would have never known there was something going on inside of me. And by the time I found out, it could have been too late. So one day, after getting home from a run, I got another call from my doctor, and she told me to get to the emergency room immediately. Apparently, the results had come back from my most recent blood test, and things had escalated pretty quickly. I didn't have time to think about it. I just grabbed a backpack and some extra clothes and drove to the ER. Once I was at the ER, they ran more blood tests, and they also performed a bone marrow biopsy on me. If you don't know what that is, it's when you lay on your stomach and they drill a hole into your hip near the base of your spine and then suck out some bone marrow to see if you have cancer or not. It's not comfy. The results of the biopsy came back positive for acute myeloid leukemia, and I was going to have to stay at the hospital for at least a month to start immediate chemotherapy. Now, I had heard of leukemia before. I knew it was a form of cancer, but I didn't know what it did or how dangerous it was. One of the doctors explained that leukemia creates a high number of immature white blood cells, aka white blood cells that don't actually do anything good for your body. This meant that the normal healthy cells couldn't do their job of fighting infections or keeping me healthy. And if the number of immature white blood cells got too high, then it could lead to organ failure. So yeah, not the greatest thing to get diagnosed with. This was life-changing news. This was life-threatening news, but I didn't really get upset. It just felt kind of surreal. I didn't want to waste any time being angry or depressed because I understood that wasn't gonna help me recover quicker. It wasn't gonna help me get healthy. It wasn't gonna help me feel better. It definitely wasn't gonna help my family feel better. They were already stressed out enough as it was with everything that I had going on. I just wanted to start treatment as soon as possible, finish treatment as soon as possible, and get back to living a normal life. Chemo wasn't particularly fun. I find it ironic that after hundreds of years of medical advancements and innovations, The best way we have to treat cancer is to inject poison directly into your veins. Now, the purpose is that it kills the cancer cells, but it also kills some other important things like your blood, for example. But yeah, after a wonderful month of being confined to a small hospital room and getting poison injected into my body for weeks, the doctors finally said that I could go home. But even when I got home, I wasn't really allowed to go out or see people or anything because I had a compromised immune system. And the seclusion, honestly, was one of the hardest parts of everything that I went through. I mean, everyone I knew, all my friends, were getting ready to move to college and start the next chapter in their lives. Meanwhile, I was locked at home, choking down pills and taking power naps every day. Now, at this point, we're in August of 2021, and my doctor's plan for me moving forward was to go through 4 more rounds of chemotherapy. But this time it would be in an outpatient setting, which meant that in the morning I would drive to the hospital, I would receive 1 hour of chemotherapy, then I would wait there for another 10 hours before receiving the next dosage of chemotherapy, and then I would come home. My doctor was fairly confident that with the specific type of cancer that I had, this regimen would be sufficient enough to cure me. Now, even though this was a long and grueling process, one of the things that helped get me through it was being thankful for the little things. I mean, every day when I went to the hospital, I would see people who were worse off than me. People who couldn't walk, people who couldn't talk, people who were just sicker than I was. It made me really appreciate the fact that I came into this whole process being young and fit, because that base helped me get through treatment in ways that other people weren't able to. After my 5 months of chemo was over, it was now January, and I was scheduled for another bone marrow biopsy to see if the treatment actually worked. The results came back with a very small percentage of my stem cells showing signs of leukemia, but my doctor said that the number was so low that I was officially in remission, and hopefully as some time passed, the remaining leukemia cells would be killed off by the residual effects of the chemo. My next doctor's appointment wouldn't be for another 3 months to check back in, and I was officially able to start living life again. The college I was planning on attending had been extremely understanding of my entire situation, so they had saved my scholarship and my spot on the team. So the first thing I started doing was training again to get in shape for the fall cross-country season. This wasn't easy, especially because prior to my diagnosis and going through all this treatment, I could walk out the door and go run 8, 10, 12 miles pretty easily. But now I was more or less starting from scratch. So even just running 1 mile made me feel like I was gonna kill over and die half the time. But as time went on, I started to get back in shape and I was beginning to resemble my old self again. For the first time in months, I was able to spend time with friends, travel, see family, and I started coaching the track team at my old high school. I know all this would seem like normal stuff to most people, but after what I had just gone through, I was beyond grateful to have the opportunity to do all this. After being robbed of so much time, I was finally in control of my life again. Or so I thought. April rolled around and I went back to my doctor for a bone marrow biopsy to check up and see how everything was going. Maybe I was just nervous, but For some reason, I had a feeling that I wasn't going to be getting good news. And unfortunately, I was right. The results showed that the leukemia had come back. And even though we knew this was a possibility, my doctor was still surprised by how quickly and aggressively it had returned. He decided that since the chemo didn't work, the best course of action would be to do a stem cell transplant. This process would mean receiving a lethal dosage of chemotherapy as well as a lethal dosage of radiation that would completely wipe out my current immune system, and then I would receive healthy stem cells from a donor that would, in theory, grow me a new healthy immune system. All in all, they said that it would be 2 months in the hospital, followed by another year of recovery at home. And that's assuming that everything went well. So once again, I had a chair pulled out from under me and had to put my life on hold in order to deal with this disease that seems so intent on killing me. Still though, it was the kind of thing where you just accept you're in a bad situation and now you have to do everything you possibly can to get out of it, even if it wasn't going to be easy. Now, I had experience with chemo, so I was able to be prepared for that as much as you could be, but radiation was particularly tough. My skin got burned really bad to the point where I was always asking for ice packs. My mouth and throat also hurt really bad. I couldn't eat. I couldn't even talk. I literally had to download this app where you like type in what you want to say and it talks for you. And I'm not a fast typer, so communication was rough. Eating solid food was impossible, so I had to drink most of my calories. I ended up losing over 20 pounds. I went in weighing like 155. I got as low as like 133. Also, with chemo, I had lost my hair before on my head, but I never lost my eyebrows or eyelashes or anything. This time I lost like everything, I think because of the radiation. But yeah, it's like kind of growing back now, but you could see I'm still missing eyelashes and stuff. And I'm growing this weird goatee thing too. Like it's not coming in on the cheeks, but oh well. My older brother Tommy ended up being a match for my transplant. So he had to take leave from the Marines to come fly out and donate his stem cells so that I could get the transplant done. You're a lifesaver, Tommy. Literally. The transplant itself was kind of underwhelming. They just had the bag of stem cells, which honestly just looked like a bag of blood, hooked it up to an IV, and yeah, gave it to me. It was like a 20-minute process. And then after that, it was essentially just waiting for them to kick in and do their thing and start building my immune system back up, at which this point, it had already been wiped out by all the chemo, radiation, all that. During my time at the hospital, they had a lot of activity and stuff for the patients to do, which was pretty cool. Like art. I wasn't very good at the art, but they brought dogs a lot, which was pretty cool. One time they even brought a pig that could ride a skateboard. That was lit. But despite all that, I was pretty bored out of my mind. I couldn't wait to go home, and it seemed like every day was just taking forever. But eventually, after 19 days post-transplant, they said that I was good to go home. Just recently, I hit the 30-day mark post-transplant, so they performed another bone marrow biopsy on me. More stabbing needles. The pain ended up being worth it though, because once the results came in, my doctor actually had some good news for me. There was, for the first time since my original diagnosis, no evidence of leukemia in my body. Now, it's still very early, so there is a chance that I could relapse and the leukemia could return, which is why I'm not totally out of the woods yet. But I have another bone marrow biopsy at the 100-day mark to check up on things, see how I'm doing. And then I'll have another one at the 1-year mark after that. Not to mention, they have me taking like 700 pills a day. I mean, look at this. This is insane. Like, for example, they have me take these to fight graft versus host disease, which is a really common side effect of stem cell transplant. But the problem is these also cause liver damage. So because they cause liver damage, they have me take these steroids to protect the liver. But the problem is that these steroids also make you more susceptible for infections. So because I'm more susceptible to infection, I have to take this IV every single day as well. Not to mention like 40 other medications. But I guess it beats dying, so I'm here for it. But yeah, overall, I feel blessed that things are moving in the right direction. I'm praying every single day that they continue to go that way. But in the meantime, I've got work to do, and I can't wait to share more of this journey. I wanted to give a massive thank you to everybody that's supported me the past year plus going through all of this and continue to support me today. Thank you also to everyone who watched this video. If you have any questions, feel free, leave it in the comments. I'll try to reply. And if you want to like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Love y'all.